elected officials for your counsel on decisions prior to you making them?
No.
There we go. Well,
no one contacts me about this show.
Well, not about the show, but just about about decisions.
I didn't want to hear that.
Well, the reason I bring this up, well, no, I did want to hear that because although I didn't want it directed at the show, I got the right answer to the wrong question. Right. We had that situation a few weeks ago when County Commissioner Alan Jagger specifically requested for a few more days to review the information when the county made that, I guess I would call it a faux loan, a false loan, or a phony baloney loan to Brookhaven. And County Commissioner Alan Jagger said, look, this is a pretty complicated situation. I don't understand it. Can we have a few days where I can review it and also bring it to my constituents, the folks who actually vote and will ultimately have to pay for these loans, and find out a little bit about it. And they did bring it to a vote. There were 11 county commissioners there, and the vote was 1 to 10. So they weren't interested in having the citizens out there, but we are. And one thing I like to do is start the show off, if I can, with a quote. And actually, my favorite one is that Churchill quote about criticisms, which I guess I'll read one more time, but I have another quote. Criticism may not be agreeable, but it is necessary. It fulfills the same function as pain in the human body. It calls attention to an unhealthy state of things. And we are not intending in any way to bash Muskegon County. We may be bashing certain decisions that have been made by certain elected officials and certain department heads and things of that sort. But we want to bring attention to an unhealthy state of things so that we can make them more healthy down the road. And but the quote that I wanted to start off with this morning really goes kind of hand in hand. This is from Patrick Henry, the great American patriot, and that is, the liberties of a people never were nor ever will be secure when the transactions of their rulers may be concealed from them. And again, that's really what this show's all about. We want to make sure that you folks out there in radio land, podcast land, computer land, and even those folks who send us those emails and call us in, that you know what's going on. Because if you have a situation where you've been an elected official and you get no feedback, the natural human response, I believe, is going to be, dang it, I'm doing a great job. I've heard that from some city council folks at one of the local communities. I said, you don't have many people showing up at your meetings.
You should do, I think it would be kind of fun. We'd take the camera out and we'll get a microphone and we'll have you go around and ask people if they know who their person is in office.
Yeah. Who's the mayor of your city? Who's your county commissioner?
Commissioner. Yeah.
Well, it's
I bet you.
Well, you'll see that on Jay Leno and Letterman occasionally. They'll go out and they'll ask who's the vice president. Heck, they'll even ask who's the president.
Right.
It's pretty sad. Yeah, I can tell you, I was trying to get signatures for what we called a contract with Muskegon, with Muskegon County. It was a petition it wasn't an official petition, but just to get support for 10 items that we wanted the county commission to approve. They were pretty general, but things like having more public meetings, having more time between the time that a spending item was presented to the time there was voting and things of that sort. And I went in different places to get signatures, and almost everybody signed. But the funny thing was, I asked that same question that you just asked, and that was, do you know who your county commissioner is? And I only found one person. And the only reason she knew who her county commissioner was because the county commissioner happened to live across the street from him, and she said, and he's a son of a bitch, blah, 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 blah. So I guess that's one way to know about it. But we do want to make sure that the transactions of your rulers...
Now that's entertainment.
Well, it was. Oh, good God, she had all sorts of interesting things to tell me that unfortunately I can't say on the radio. But as I just want to remind you, of course, you're listening on the radio, or you might be listening on newstalk1090.com using iHeartRadio. And we just got a piece of information which they put in front of us. But iHeartRadio, which is not that old,
yeah.
okay, and it's now they've got 10 million folks that have signed up
Right.
to be able to get all the various Clear Channel stations on
And
iHeartRadio.
that's just the people that signed up.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so that's it's growing. We hope we're adding to that growth, and it does make it easy for you if you want to listen to the show.
I thought that was just your show, 10 million. No?
Oh, it does say the Eye on Muskegon show, 10 million.
Right, yeah.
Well, there we go.
I wrote that in.
Another softball that you tossed me that just zoomed right by my head. Thank you so much. Well, it's morning. It's Sunday morning, and boy, is it a nice morning too. But you can of course listen to us on iHeartRadio, but you can also listen to today's show and every one of the past shows on eyeonmuskegon.com. Just click on the link. We usually post the Sunday show in the early afternoon. So I'll give you the phone number again also today, 231-421-4409. That's my home number. That's not the call-in number. And the eyeonmuskegon@gmail.com is a way to communicate with me. And if you want to call here and talk with us on the air this morning, 231-830-3109.
Just out of curiosity, do you get any comments on the YouTube? Are you up on YouTube? I don't know.
No, I haven't. Oh, and thank you for mentioning it, though. On eyeonmuskegon.com, Oscar videos our show. And in this today, you'll, of course, be able to see Professor Fink and non-Professor Riley sitting side by side. But you video the show, so it's the same show that you'd hear on the radio, but you've got us bouncing around and jumbling papers and spilling coffee. And that hits sometime early in the week, and I put that link so that you can see the whole show on YouTube. Usually Tuesday or Wednesday, and you can get that on Eye on Muskegon also. And then, of course, the previous week's show, Oscar puts on TV 38 on every Monday night from 8 to 9:30 p.m. prime time, and that would be Comcast 397.
Now, that's probably where you get your 10 million people listening.
Right, there you go. Yeah,
That wouldn't surprise me at all.
I'm thinking so.
I know that when I go to Myers, old ladies are throwing thongs at me. So it's a tremendous experience.
Throw girdles at you. Hey,
It's
Jim.
a tremendous experience to be
Take this. Boing.
a media micro star here in Muskegon County. Hey, on this, I thought I was looking at some of the events that happened on this day in history. And in 1774, Britain's Parliament passed the Coercive Acts Act, I guess, to punish the American colonists for their increasingly anti-British behavior. And of course, our federal government is passing any number of things, including drones flying around in the sky and everything else, to punish us, or at least to keep us in line. Well, this was in 1774. On this exact same day in 1775, North Carolina became the first colony to declare its independence. So that didn't work out all that well for the British. I don't think it's going to work well for our government at any level if they want to punish us for not doing what they want us to do. Another how did that work out for you item that happened on this day in 1902. The United States ended a 3-year military presence in Cuba as the Republic of Cuba was established. So we took over Cuba at the end of the Spanish-American War, I believe it must have been the case, or at least as a result of. And we set it off on a path. We were essentially nation building so that we would have a tremendous ally and friend in Cuba. And, of course, how did that work out for us? Not all that well. So maybe we ought to, as a country, avoid nation building. And as we're finding out, even corporation or company building doesn't seem to be working out too well, as the Solandras and the Fiskers and
the General Motors.
The General Motors, there's still, notwithstanding what has been advertised and repeated often enough so that it's become truth for some, but it's in fact a lie. General Motors has not paid off its debt to the United States taxpayer. It's still in the neighborhood of $20 million, which is kind of an interesting number.
Million.
Thank you very much. With the B, $20 billion. Yep. That's the B number. Well, and it's kind of interesting because the President Obama's weekend speech that the president does, and then the opposing party would respond, but he was chastising one of the largest banks in the country, J.P. Morgan, for losing $2 billion. Now, the interesting thing was that J.P. Morgan's $2 billion was lost from J.P. Morgan, and it was only part of about, I think, a $13 billion profit in that quarter. So it was, even though it's a big number to you and I, in the grand scheme of things, it's a very small number to J.P. Morgan, but it was money from J.P. Morgan. At the same time, there seems to be no chastising of the $20 billion, thank you, Professor Fink, the $20 billion that is yet to be paid back by General Motors. And General Motors does seem to be healthier, and perhaps it will come back. So, knock on wood, we will hear the better news down the pike. And that wonderful music is back. So we will take a break and come back and continue our talking about stuff happened this past week.
You dadgum government, you sorry so-and-sos. You got your damn hams in every pocket of my clothes.
And we're back at Eye on Muskegon, Muskegon's #1 rated political talk radio show. We're talking here with Professor Andy Fink and, of course, the legendary Oscar Oswo. A couple of other things are going on. Birthdays today, famous birthdays today. This one made me think of Professor Fink because he is pretty bright dude and has been of very good counsel to me and I know others over time. But famous birthday in 1806, John Stuart Mill, very brilliant editor and philosopher.
Oh, yes, one of my heroes.
Is that the truth?
Oh, yes.
Okay, well, good for you. Well, it doesn't surprise me because you sound a lot like the way I'm sure Mr. Mill would sound if there were recording devices and I had listened to them. But at least in my imaginations, you sound like him.
He was essentially a libertarian who did not like government, but he was not a slave to that objective. He recognized that there were things that government could do better than private enterprise or private effort.
Yeah, I think most libertarians understand. Of course, that's a broad term and been redefined in many ways lately. But libertarians understand that there is a need for government. It's just the question of the absolute size. But there's two birthdays that kind of caught me that are sort of converge a little bit. A gal called her name was Sherilyn Sarkisian LaPierre, was born in 1946. Sherilyn Sarkisian LaPierre. Now, we all know her name. It's she's an entertainer. And her name, actually, it's only a one-word name. One of the first big one-worders out there.
What's her last name again?
LaPierre.
LaPierre.
Well,
What's her middle name?
Sarkisian.
Okay, that would be Cher.
Well, yes, it was. How did you know that?
Because I knew that she was Armenian, and Arcasian has an
Sarkisian.
Armenian end to it.
There we go. Well, yes, it was Cher's birthday in 1946. Well, the reason I bring this up,
I didn't even know that. I didn't know that's first time I heard her name.
And the Sherilyn is Cherilyn, so that makes perfect sense. But on the same day in 1960, Susan Cowsill was born. Now, Susan Cowsill was a singer in the Cowsills. They had a little bit of a popularity back into the 70s, I think it was. Your Hair, I Think I Love You, a couple of those little. But they were they were the family band.
Well, I Think I Love You, that was Partridge Family, the ones that copied the Cowsills.
There we go. Yeah. There we go. Exactly. Well, the funny thing is that she starts out in the Cowsills, this all-American apple pie American band, and they list the bands that she was in. Starts out with the Cowsills. The next one is the Continental Drifters. She finishes up with the Psycho Sisters. So there we go. Things worked out, I'm sure, very interestingly for Susan Cowsill. Hey, a couple things happening today, and you still have time to get dressed. Today from 11 to 3, and you can arrive there probably as late as 12:30, but from 11 to 3 at the Muskegon Country Club, the board of the Queen of the Great Lakes, the Milwaukee Clipper, will have their brunch. And the brunch actually is from 11 to 1. But there's live silent auction, which is really spectacular. I was talking with the head of that organization there, T.J. Parker, who does a great job, by the way. They're really spiffed up the ship and, of course, making moves to move it into a better location. But they have tremendous silent auction items, great time to go out. Of course, the view at the Muskegon Country Club is spectacular on both sides. And we were there last year. Honey Bunch and I will be there today. The brunch is, I don't think it's can be equaled in Muskegon. So from 11 to 3, I believe it's $30 a ticket. Some of that is a donation. There's a cash bar for those of you who want to take the trolley home. And but there'll be raffle and door prizes. So that's happening today. next week. Actually, there's something next week we need to talk about. The Girls on the Run, 1,200 girls yesterday downtown. That was excellent. And I went, Honey Bunch and I joined actually a candidate for Circuit Court Judge David Wells and his wife were also there, among many, many others, on the LST 393 to celebrate Armed Forces Day. And they had a very, very moving tribute, a variety of really moving events that happened there, including a 21-gun salute and a flyover by the World War II vintage A6, the 4 A6 aircraft. So
one thing you didn't mention, it's a professor. The professor knows about this one too, being a Whitehallian. The Relay for Life is going on right now in Whitehall. So.
Is that going on right now?
Right now, yeah.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, good. We need a little. Actually, I'm having folks who are communicating to me information that they'd like to see publicized, and if there's anybody up there in Whitehall's got some ideas, certainly let me know. Happy to help them out. I do want to remind folks that I'm at Carmen's next week. I will only be at Carmen's on Tuesday, and I'll be there early. I'll be there from 12:30 to 1:15 because there is what the county commissioners call a planning session. These are the meetings they desperately do not want you to attend, and but you are allowed to attend. It'll be in the what they call the training center, which is on the corner of Apple and Pine, I believe, room 202. But if you want to go to that planning session, certainly join me at Carmen's beforehand. We can talk about it, get some sense.
You film everything. You know,
and I do film it and put it on IonMuskegon.com.
You were talking about not giving birthday gifts to guys. I think one birthday gift that we should get you, though, is this little spy cam that you could put on, like in your hair or something.
A little, probably it would have to be quite small to be put into my hair.
Yeah,
but maybe my nose. It would have probably plenty of room in my nose.
Pen type spy pen.
Okay.
You know, yeah.
We could get you, and of course, they wouldn't even notice the difference. We'd get you some of those glasses with the
there you go.
Groucho Marx nose and mustache, and put the camera in there, and that's what the commission thinks you look like anyway.
Yeah.
Well, that's sadly the truth, I'm sure. Well, okay, maybe my birthday is coming up on the same day as Custer's last stand and the first day of the Korean War. So
there you go.
Those of you who are so inclined to provide the noses.
What would that date be?
That day is June 25th, Custer's last stand, and the first day of the Korean War. So it doesn't get any better than that.
Yeah. And
the next day is my birthday.
Oh, my golly. Well, now, what happened on your birthday? What exciting things?
Not a thing.
The Montague Whitehall Rotary is having a golf outing in celebration of my birthday, and it's $60 a golfer, and you get to help support water for poor people in third world countries and fight polio worldwide.
Oh,
wow.
What a combo.
On your birthday.
On my birthday.
Well,
that's quite a gift.
Your birthday is far more productive than mine was, apparently. So, well, those things are coming up. Hey, last week we had a great guest from the Heartland Institute, and I would recommend those of you who are interested in this. First off, their website, heartland.org, is a great website, but they do have live streaming of their International Conference on Climate Change, which starts tomorrow. And if you're really interested in getting some information that will actually provide you with some true knowledge, you can watch it live streaming. I imagine they will record it, and then you can watch it at any time that you like. A couple other little things I wanted to touch base on. We had this big time the traffic problems up on the causeway going to North Muskegon and the bridge up north. Folks picked up the phone, contacted their representatives, and that thing got fixed up pretty quickly. Yeah. We do have power, and the interesting thing happened this past. Or actually yesterday, the state Republicans had their state convention. And among other things, they got rid of the 2 state committee people. Those are part of essentially the board of directors of the National Republican Party. And each state has 2, a man and a woman. And Holly Hughes, of course, who is our current state rep, she was the woman. And the Saul Newsis was at least running for the man's position. Both of those, who apparently were considered by some to be establishment candidates, both lost.
I think they were both incumbents.
Okay, Newsis might have been an incumbent. They both lost, and it's interesting enough that we will carry over that conversation after we come back from the break, and then we're going to start. We will get into an in-depth analysis of this most recent all the filings for people running for public office. So after the break, we will be back.
Oh, don't you love me sometime?
News Talk 1090 is the talk of Muskegon.
Well, you dadgum government, you sorry so-and-sos. You got your damn hands in every pocket of my clothes. Well,
and we are back at Eye on Muskegon. And before the break, we were talking about this Republican convention. And these things typically are pretty dull, but it was quite interesting because the two folks that ultimately won, Dave Agema and Terry Lynn Land, who was had a few years back was our Secretary of State. They both ran on essentially a maybe not a Tea Party platform per se, but certainly they ran as more conservative than Holly Hughes, our current state representative Holly Hughes, and Saul Lanuzzis, who was actually a past state Republican Party chairman. But to me, the interesting point, in addition to that, was that in the 2nd District, which encompasses Muskegon, that's the district that Representative Huizenga represents, a group of Tea Party folks came out, organized. They organized well in Muskegon County, I know, and they obviously organized very well in Ottawa County, because that's also part of the 2nd District, and they won all the seats. They were able to put their slate in, and I believe they won every single seat that was going to be represented to go into the national convention.
Are you sure, Jim, that it was the Tea Party and not just the Ron Paul people?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, I mistook. It was the Ron Paul people. It was not the Tea Party per se. It was the Ron Paul people. And the Ron Paul folks, who generally, obviously to the conservative side of the Republican Party, and many of them were angry at the way that the Michigan primary had been held and counted and things of that sort. But whether this is a good thing for Michigan or a bad thing for Michigan in terms of having these folks win in West Michigan, it's a wonderful thing, I believe, for everyone in the state to show that the little folks can have a voice, and do have a voice if we choose to use it. And Andy, you had a little story about
yes.
this?
Last fall, I had a high school student in my class at Muskegon Community College. It's an American government class, and he was a Ron Paul supporter. And he wasn't eligible. He didn't turn 18 until February, and so he was wondering if he could vote in the primary. And we figured out that he probably could, and I just told him to talk to the county clerk and get it straightened out, and I think he did. Anyway, he asked if he could be a delegate to the state convention, and as you recall, Jim, at our county convention, we didn't have an excess of candidates for the state convention, so essentially anybody who wanted it could get it, so he got it. But I know he was a Ron Paul supporter, and I'm assuming that he was down there and as part of that 2nd District takeover, as are quite a few other people from Muskegon County that we know that were at the convention.
Well, I just applaud that activism. It takes a lot, I think, to go all the way down to Detroit and get a hotel and that type of thing. And not everyone, obviously, is able to or really even inclined to do that. But signing up to be a precinct delegate, now it's we've been talking about this for a few months, and May 15th, last week, was the last date to sign up for that. But
it was the last date to get on the ballot, but you can get on it as a write-in candidate right up until the weekend before the primary in August, I believe. And because we never have all the precinct delegate seats filled. If you even do it as a write-in candidate and vote for yourself, you're almost assured to be a precinct delegate.
Now, do you have to sign up to be a write-in candidate, or can you just have people put your name in there?
I believe you have to put your name in the hopper with your county clerk or your township clerk before the election, just so they know whether they should count this vote or treat it like a Mickey Mouse vote.
Okay, well then I'm glad you mentioned that, because I was unaware of that. Actually, I was aware of it, but I've since forgotten it. And I will I'll do a little research on this, and as we get closer to the August 7th primary up, we'll have some more information about that. So there still is an opportunity if you want to be involved in either the Democrat Party or the Republican Party, if you want to be someone who really does have some clout. And as we just found out here in West Michigan, those folks not only had the clout, they utilized it, and they're going to be a factor as time goes on. And the reason I'm interested in this clout, because I started off talking about the causeway and the highway stuff. This is what you are supposed to do as a citizen. You know, we will elect our representatives, be they the township trustees or mayors or state reps or what have you, and we give them power. But we also have responsibilities, and those responsibilities are to, one, educate ourselves, and of course, there's no better way to do that than listen to Professor Fink and the legendary Oscar, and even me on occasion on Ion Muskegon. But the other way is picking up the phone and contacting your legislators, your representatives, to voice your support, voice your opposition to certain things, or even to make a simple question. And last week, the Muskegon County Commissioners voted 11-0 to put what they call a truth in taxation hearing, because the county commissioners feel that they do not have enough money coming in, and they want a tax increase. Now, this is not it's interesting, because it's not a significantly great amount of money that at least they've announced that this new tax increase will bring. It's a new millage, and matter of fact, there'll be extensions of other millages down the road. But I would strongly recommend that you go to ionmuskegon.com, and on the right-hand column is contact information for your county commissioners. And pick up the phone and say, hey, I understand you guys are going to have a meeting, and you've already voted to approve this. Explain it to me. It's essentially unexplainable. I would just suggest that you do that. You're going to have an opportunity to vote for these folks in August, many of them, and all of them in November. And they ought to be able to answer that question. And if not, you ought to say, well, why the heck did you vote? Why did you vote to even go ahead with a public hearing if, in fact, you didn't know what the heck you're voting about? We got a caller in. We'll take the caller right now. Caller, you're on the line.
Hi.
Hi. What's on your mind?
I just want to tell you, Commissioner Jagger did not vote for the tax increase or to even hear the truth in taxation.
Hey, thank you for that. And now that you mention it, given that I was there, I should have known that.
Yeah, he said 11-0.
Actually, and now that I think about it, there was one commissioner who wasn't there, so it would have been 9-1. And thank you, because Commissioner Jagger did not vote to approve this public hearing on the tax increase. Is that correct?
As far as I know, that's correct, and he will not vote for the millage.
Okay, all right, and I think it's important, since we're going to be talking about that one lone brave soul who sits up there, and truly he is alone quite often, but he will be running for re-election, and he's got a squished, if you will, or certainly a significantly changed district that he'll be running in, and he'll be running in against the winner of the primary. There's going to be a Democrat primary that will be deciding who the Democrat candidate, but the candidate who is the current county commissioner in that Democrat primary is James Derazinski, and I believe that James Derazinski did vote for this tax increase. Is that the way you recall it?
Yeah, Jim Derazinski and Ron Haywood, I believe, are both running in the District 7.
Okay,
That's correct, and it is District 7.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for clarifying that. And really, you can either call in, folks, or you can email me, or you've even got the phone number that I've mentioned where you can call me at home. If you've got some information you would like us to talk about, certainly communicate with me. If you've heard an error, and that's a pretty big error, if you're going to leave a.
I thought you were perfect.
Well, I did too, actually, but it turns out I'm not. Honey Bunch reminds me quite often that I'm not. But please keep us honest here, and let us know. And I think that's an important thing because quite often when you're looking at some of the municipal elections, and you say, well, geez, who should I vote for? Well, this is a really clear one. In the case of Commissioner Jagger versus Commissioner Derazinski, if Derazinski is able to win his primary, you've got one commissioner who voted with all of the other Democrat-dominated board and all the other Republicans who tend to vote just like Democrats most of the time. And you've got one commissioner who voted against it. So if you like new taxes, if you like new millages, you've got a choice. Commissioner Derazinski voted for it, and Commissioner Alan Jagger voted against it. So that's it. Thank you both commissioners, because you made the choice easier for an awful lot of folks.
Is he still considered Dr. No?
He most certainly is.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, he's he. If you've I've spoken to him quite often, but Commissioner Jagger says, I don't like increasing the spending, and I in particular don't like increasing the spending when I really don't understand what it is they're doing. And I'm going to read a little of this. I've got a little. This is the official what they call request for board consideration. It's 3 paragraphs long, and I'm not going to read the entire thing, but here's part of it. It says, however, from the perspective of the Muskegon County operating levy, an additional criterion exists in the determination if a truth in taxation public hearing is required, the use of convention facilities tax and cigarette tax monies for the need for a truth in taxation public hearing, period. Now, I'm not even sure that makes any sense. Generally speaking, a public hearing needs to be held this year to discuss purposes and therefore also allowing the use of the same county operating levy as last year, blah, 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 blah. If you read it, you will not understand it, and I think that may very well have been part of the motivation for Commissioner Jagger's no vote. And again, he has specifically asked on numerous occasions, and I think it's important, I don't mean just to tout what I believe is a very principled stand on the behalf of Commissioner Jagger, but I think I would very much like to highlight what I believe to be an unprincipled stand on every one of the other sitting county commissioners, who in fact will vote for things without, in many instances, having a clear sense of what they're voting on, in some cases without even having a clue, as in the case of the Brookhaven loan.
Yes, I think that maybe Nancy Pelosi's comment that we have to vote for this so we can understand what's in it is a disease that is from top to bottom in our American government.
It is sadly too often, and county commissioner to me it stands so tall here because, Jagger stands tall here because. He doesn't pretend to be the smartest guy in the room. He says,
he's a lot smarter than he pretends to be.
Well, there's a little question about that. But he doesn't pretend to be the smartest guy in the room like some of them do. He simply says, I just read this, I've had this explained to me, and I still don't understand it. What a concept.
Does that really, I mean, when people go there to these meetings and stuff, do they treat you like that, though? I mean, do they treat you like, oh, geez, and here's another guy asking a question, another guy that's giving me flack? Or I
would use the term contempt. Here is the policy. I'm not sure it's a written policy, but it most certainly is stated policy. There are 2 opportunities at Muskegon County Commission board and committee meetings for citizens to speak. You can speak at the beginning, they give you 2 minutes, and then you can speak at the end, they give you 2 minutes. But it is their policy not to respond to what you say, and not to respond to a question that you might have. So I call that contempt.
Okay, I just hung up on one guy, but we got another guy in the line too. So.
Alrighty, well, we apologize if we hung up, folks. Give it a shot again.
Well, we got one guy in the line.
All right, well, we'll take that caller.
Okay, are you there?
Yeah.
Good morning, caller.
Good morning, Jim. This is Bob Carr from up in
Oh my gosh!
County.
Well, Bob, good morning.
Good morning, Bob.
And Andy is here with me, Professor Fink. Just for those folks who are not aware, Bob was a very active Muskegon Republican and one of the real founders of the Muskegon Tea Party when he was here, and one of the drivers, and has gone up. He left our fair county and moved up to he found a spot up in Oceana County that didn't have any cell phone or internet connection. So good for you, Bob, and is a real driving force in politics up there. So good morning, and what did you have on your mind?
Well, thanks for the kudos, and a lot of kudos to you for doing what you're doing right now.
Well, keep it up, Bob. Keep calling and saying that. We'll let you on anytime you like.
Well, I get $5 a pop, don't I?
That's true. You didn't need to say that on the air, though.
You're cousins, aren't you, Jim?
Anyway, what did you have on your mind, Bob?
What I'm calling about is a state convention and how that went. I didn't go, but I was very gratified to hear the results. We got a couple of good conservatives in there.
You mean as the state committee humans?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
And they decide the state policy.
Well,
what the party does.
Well, I think what's nice about that, and again, I'm a big fan. I truly am a big fan of Representative Holly Hughes, and of course she is local here. But the problem I have always had, whenever people are put into the position of having to vote for somebody, be it a township trustee or a representative, or in this case, a very important position to represent the Republican Party statewide and nationally, is why should I vote for you over the other person? And as much of a political junkie as I am, I've never heard Representative Hughes or Saul Nuzis ever articulate specifically why they would be better than the others, whereas Ajima and Terry Lynn Land were quite specific as to what they would do differently.
Yes, they were. This whole process goes to show the world is.
Oh, one more. You're in that dead zone again on that cell phone. Say that one more time.
Oh, geez, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Probably breaking up, but the world is run by those who show up, and that just goes to prove that. Did you hear that?
Yes, so true, so true.
And I don't know what's going on with the Muskegon Republican Party, but I think it's kind of lame just to sit back and blame it all on the Ron Paul people. They were organized, and they showed up, and they did what the Republican Party says that they're supposed to do.
Did you think that this show was blaming it on the Ron Paul people?
Well, I kind of get that. Somebody mentioned a takeover, Ron Paul takeover.
Oh, I think I mentioned that. Yeah, I mentioned that, and actually, I think your point is very well taken. And it wasn't a slam at the takeover, although it was credit to those folks for doing what you just stated, which was organizing and showing up. But the Republican Party here in Muskegon could easily have filled all of those slots with people of a different mindset, and they just didn't get the job done.
You're right, and boy, these races are starting to get exciting at the local level, aren't they?
Oh, most certainly, and we're going to be talking about that. Actually, we're going to get right in there. Was there a particular race that caught your attention?
Well, yours, of course, but I'm more into Oceana County up here.
It's $10 for him now.
There we go. I better, I meant to say this early on. I have filed, so I am now one of those scurrilous folks, a candidate for elective public office. I have filed to run in, I believe it's District 4, Muskegon County Commission, and I will be running against it in the primary, which will be on August 7th, running against the incumbent, the very long-term incumbent, Bob Skolnick, the old keep Bob on the job, and he wants to go at least 12 years as a county commissioner. So I will be running against Bob in the August 7th primary, and because no Democrat has signed up, and that time has passed now, that very likely the winner of the primary will become the county commissioner for the next 2 years. So
yes, of course, any Democrat who wants to run for that position can file as a write-in candidate.
That's true. Yeah, it isn't over, and the same thing for a Republican too.
And you can also get on the independent, run as an independent, and the deadline, I believe, is in June.
That's right. Yes, yes. If you're not going to run in one of the more traditional parties, there was a little later date. So it isn't over till it's over, and I'm in the mix. And but there are lots of other races here. Any other races that you find interesting, and why?
Well, up in Oceana County, there's a lot of people again showing up. The primary is the big thing. 6 out of the 7 county commissioners, for example, are being contested in the Republican primary.
6 out of the 7. That's tremendous. Because that's one of the things I noted here of the current. We currently have 11 county commissioners. Next coming this next election, we will have 9, and 8 of the 9 will be contested at any number of different levels, the primary and the general. So that really makes me feel good about citizen involvement.
And I would like to throw in one other thing about the Tea Party, and it's getting a lot of bad press lately, but I think you can see it happening in these local races. We've started to get organized and get people to run for these. There's, I think, 4 of those 7 are in Oceana County are Tea Party people.
Well, and for those who are listening here, Tea Party has been, at least in West Michigan, it may be different in some other places, but the Tea Party is generally a group of people who are fiscal conservatives. That's the prime motivating factor from my standpoint. How is that? Is that a correct assessment from your standpoint?
I'd say it's a mixture of both social and fiscal. I know a lot of people don't like to hear that.
Okay, well, no, that's important.
Limited government, constitutional government are also things that I hear coming out of the Tea Party people.
Yes, yes.
And just like Grover Norquist's book, Leave Us Alone, that's a basic motivation, I think, for most everybody.
Well, I think most people, even folks who would call themselves Democrats, if they really saw the spending and the efficiency of the spending, they would be appalled. I know this. We before we went to the LST for the Armed Forces Day celebration, Honey Bunch and I walked all over Muskegon, and we went out to the Grand Valley Water Resource Building out there on the lake. And they had all of these cutaways, the things that are important for people in wheelchairs, but they were all brand new. They even had plastic over some of them. But these cutaways were on roads that were dead-ended. The cutaways were right there. I mean, we have just spent, if you walk through downtown Muskegon, you'll see, if not dozens, maybe even hundreds of these relatively new cutaways. Have to be quite expensive. They're all done on what's called prevailing wage, which means you can't pay what a normal rate would be here in West Michigan. You have to pay the highest union rate in the Detroit area. And taking all of this money, of course, which is all borrowed from children, grandchildren, and unborn children, and just throwing it away in these cutaways at the same time that we have all these roads with potholes and bridges and need and everything else. So the Tea Party folks are not happy with that. But, well, Bob, appreciate your calling in. Keep us on your speed dial. You sound the phone sounds good, and you sound good. And as we get closer, I'd like to get maybe a little more of an update on what's going on in Ottawa County, too.
Can I throw in one more quick plug?
Absolutely.
I'm running for the County Road Commission up here.
Oh, well, good for you.
I filed on the ballot, got all the signatures. So
now, is that a partisan ballot?
Yes, it is.
So you are running as a Republican?
Republican. Very
good. Well, best of luck. Keep us informed. We may call this show Eye on Muskegon, but we definitely know that Ottawa County, Kent County, and Oceana County are right around the corner.
Keep up the good work, buddy.
Hey, thanks, Bob. Appreciate the call.
Bye.
Hey, since we do have Bob, or Bob brought this up, I wanted to kind of run down some of the very interesting races. Only 2 representatives, U.S. congressmen in the state of Michigan, do not have challengers. And our own Republican Bill Huizenga will be on the ballot, but he will have no challenger. I'm a huge fan of Representative Huizenga.
No Democrat challenger?
There was David Takitaki, who's an instructor out at Muskegon Community College, had initially said that he would be running, and apparently he had some health problems and at the last minute pulled out. I am a big fan of Representative Huizenga. truly a huge fan. I think I've followed his short career very closely, but I do think it's healthy to have some competition. So Democrats, just like the Republicans may have fallen down a little bit here in Muskegon County, you Democrats in District 2, the congressional district, need to get out there and see if you can get a quality candidate, at least to have a dialogue. Senate race, huge. There are going to be, 5 folks that are going to be running against Debbie Stabenow. And but when we get into some of these other races, the 91st District, we have Holly Hughes. Of course, we just talked about Republican Holly Hughes, who's the incumbent. She has a primary challenge. Sort of the gentleman, Max Reeksey, I guess they pronounce it.
Reeksey, yes.
Reeksey will be forcing a primary run there. And whoever wins that primary will face a new challenger on the Democrat side, Colleen Lamonte, who is, I believe she's a school teacher.
She is a school teacher.
So that's again, I think that's healthy. Holly will have to hone her skills and hone her message, and be interesting to see what Max Reeksey has to talk about.
I don't think so.
Well, no. It will be interesting. Whether it'll be informative is another story, but we'll find that out. In the 92nd District, though, where the incumbent Marcia Hovey Wright, she also has a primary against Willie Walton. I don't know if that's a gentleman or a woman. And then wonderfully, there is a Republican, Travis Shepard, who's filed in that race. So you're going to have a primary and a general race there. And again, these things are excellent because they give these candidates an opportunity, and hopefully they will avail themselves of it to tell us what they're all about.
How do they get their name out there, though? Because, like I say, you're having trouble pronouncing some of their names because you don't really know them yet. I mean, including yourself. I mean, you're the famous Jim Riley on News Talk 1090, but
do you need anything more than that?
Well, you're facing Bob Skolnick. That's a pretty big.
Well, actually,
big challenge.
There's as a candidate, and I will address what you just said there. As a candidate, what I've found are there are 2 important things that you have to do. First off, you have to have a message. You have to. In my case, I'm going to be challenging an incumbent. I have to be able to tell people why, very specifically, I would be better than that person I'm going to be running against. And since you have an incumbent, you can look at their votes and say, I wouldn't do this, or I would do this differently. So you have to create a message, and then to me, almost the bigger challenge is how do you get that message out? Right. One way that I believe works, I've seen it work, is that if you have a compelling message and you take that message to people, to leaders within your community and say, look, listen to my message. If you think this message is of value, I would like your support in raising money for advertising and getting the word out. And then there's the old-fashioned, walking into the community and knocking on doors and shaking hands and that kind of thing. So whether you are an incumbent or you're a challenger, you must have a message. And unfortunately, I think in Muskegon, because we have so many of our candidates who are running, in this case, county commissioner, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 of the 9 candidates have been around 8 years or more and want an additional 2. And they're not challenged. They're not challenged in terms of. And
that's kind of to their favor, though, because people know those names. They say, "Oh, we'll go in the box." Oh, I remember him. Click.
Well, name recognition is huge. Yeah. We know that, and that's what this show's all about. Again, we're not going to be focusing on my campaign, but we are going to focus on the facts that if you're going to ask for my vote and you're running for, let's just say, Marcia Hovey Wright. Okay, what is it that what is it that you've done in the last 2 years that make me want to be able to vote for you? Or she's going to be running against Travis Shepard. Travis, why would you be the better candidate? Too often we see these, we've all gotten these dozens and dozens of postcards over an election season with, the attractive spouse, the beautiful kids, the great looking dog, and the lawn, and how wonderful they are, without really saying what specifically they've done. Right. And I would like to see much more of that. We saw this in the state Republican Party, where the 2 state committeemen were put under the gun and forced to to defend their records, and they both failed. So,
and like I say, with advertising and stuff like that, it's still going to be hard because, like I said earlier, is how many people actually know who their county commissioner is.
Almost none do,
Yeah.
and you're right. It's very hard to do, and it's
The newspapers give you free advertising space in the form of letters to the editor. And if a candidate gets his name into the paper on a regular basis with letters to the editor, either by him or for him, it develops some name recognition.
Right. Yeah.
well, that's a way to
But
do
that's
it.
kind of what you got to have is a little name recognition.
Well,
there's
there's social media. There's social media, but I will tell you, Alan Jagger, for instance, I'll just use him as an example. He ran against a 4-time incumbent, very popular gentleman up in his district, and Alan Jagger won that election because he went out and he had a message, and he communicated that message. So there's many more of these. Races that I'd like to get talking to. So, do we have a break coming up here? Okay, we'll take a break and we'll come back and get even more deep into this.
Well, you dadgum government, you sorry so-and-sos. You got your damn hands in every pocket of my clothes. Well, you dadgum.
And we're back. I on Muskegon, Muskegon's #1 rated political talk radio show. We are talking Muskegon politics, and we do want to hear your comments and your conversation. Give us a call at the number that I cannot find.
Oh. I have it.
231-830-3109.
Oh, sure. Steal my thunder.
I had it. Well, I'm not getting any younger, that's for sure. But if you're interested in anything about the political world, or frankly anything that you want to talk about, we'd love to hear from you. That's 830-3109. But we are talking about those folks who have stood tall and will be running for political office, coming in many of them in August, and all of those who survive will be running in the November elections. And we've talked about some of the higher level races, but countywide, it's I've never seen this much activity, and appears to me this much interest by the citizens in county government. We have 3 Democrats who are running for county prosecutor. There is no Republican, so that means that the August primary, August 7th, will determine who our prosecutor is going to be.
Unless a Republican steps forward.
Well, you know what, Andy, you're right. But the problem is, if you at this point, Muskegon County has a long tradition of straight ticket voting, and I don't mean to discourage folks who are thinking of running as write-ins, but certainly countywide, it would be the shock of my political life to see a countywide person win a write-in.
Well, I think, though, that if you... Maybe I misunderstand the process, but if you're a write-in candidate for the primary, then you are on the ballot for the November election.
Oh, that's why they call him the professor. You know what? You might be right on that. I don't know.
He might be.
I
You
think
see that look on his face?
I think I'm
Yeah,
right.
I might be.
How dare I even suggest that he might be right, Professor Fink? I bet you are. I'm not going to bet on me on this one. I'll bet on you. But that's another piece of homework we're going to have to do. So it is not over till it's over. And if in fact you do run as a write-in, which now that you mention it, that would be so easy to do. You just do whatever the minimal filing is, and you get 25 people. Heck, you might get 5 people to write in for you as the Republican. That's an opportunity. I don't know. We'll double check into that, and that would be the case for any one of these cases, because the county prosecutor, the county sheriff, both have both have 3 Democrats running in each, and no Republicans. So again, that means that whoever wins that primary will be your prosecutor or sheriff, unless we find that a Republican's interested. Although I will say that if you haven't been interested up to this point, because it doesn't take much to sign up, it's unlikely that folks will stand tall and do the little tougher job.
And there's a reason for that, Jim. As you mentioned, we in this county tend to vote straight tickets, and that straight ticket tends to be Democrat. And so you have to have a little bit of masochism to run for sheriff or prosecutor.
I would call it courage.
Yeah.
I think that I believe, and I might be naive in this, but I believe that whatever position you may be running for, if you can articulate a reason for people to vote for you, that party doesn't matter. Now, we do know that there is straight ticket voting. It does appear, if you look at the statistics, it does appear that more Democrats vote straight ticket than do Republicans. But as Alan Jagger and others have proven over time, if you can give people a reason to vote for you, and that part of that reason might be voting against your opponent, especially if that opponent is a sitting elected official, and you can point out their voting record and say, wait a minute, would you want this to continue on? I think that party, you might be able to overcome it. But this is a Democrat county. We know that.
Isn't that is one of those, the Democrats that are running, isn't that one of the ones that got fired by Tony Tagg, too?
Yes.
He's still running?
Yes. The three gentlemen who are running for county prosecutor are Steve Corwin, Mark Curtis, and DJ Hilson. Now, one of those three was the one who was fired. And off the top of my head, I don't know.
I don't recall either.
Could be good for him. Yeah.
But another one was one who was relieved as the county solicitor or in-house lawyer, whatever they call it.
Oh, okay, all right. Well. So there's a. Again, these are the reason we're talking about this is, and we will be talking about these things as we go further. But it's critical. These are important positions, very important positions, and you need to do your homework. And one way that you can do that homework is pick up the phone and contact these candidates, or certainly if these are sitting elected officials, give them a call and demand. And I really mean this, demand an answer to the question, why should I vote for you? Aside from the fact that you've got this nice, the expensive postcard that you've sent 7 copies to my house in the last 3 weeks. County clerk, another one of the very, very important county positions. The current county clerk, who by most views I've heard is doing a very, very fine job, Nancy Waters, she has and she's a Democrat. She has a challenger, Manda Mateer. So there will be a primary there, which is really unusual, I think. I can't recall when we've had a primary for the county clerk's office. And the winner of that primary will face a really familiar name, a Republican. Cindy Fairfield is running as a Republican. Cindy was a long time Muskegon County reporter, and beyond that, editor, sports editor, and
I think she was editor of the op-ed page for a while.
I think she was the editor of the entire paper there for a while, and I think did a very, very fine job. I know I personally miss what I felt was her contribution to the paper, but I would imagine that she will do the same thing that I'm recommending that all challengers do, and that is she will articulate a reason why she deserves your vote, or she won't get it. And Nancy Waters also, I think it's good for her. She can respond, and she can say, look, I've done this, I've done that. So, but clerk is an extremely important race, and that's up. And county treasurer. And I think this is perhaps the most interesting of all the races. The current county treasurer, Tony Malaziotis, is running again, and he's being challenged by Republican Eric Rodoff. Now, I haven't heard Eric's campaign yet, but I do know that there have been some real problems in the county treasurer's office over these last few years. And there have been people fired, there's been some embezzling, there's all sorts of interesting things going on that I personally would like to have somebody hold Treasurer Malaziotis' feet to the fire and answer them. Have you been minding the store? It may be that he has, but it would be nice to have him answer those questions. As we talked about, we currently have 11 county commissioners. We will be going to 9. They've changed the districts, so whatever district you were in before has probably got a different number. But as I mentioned earlier, 6 of those 11 commissioners have been around for 8 years or longer. And if you think that the county finances and the way the county has been run for the last 8 to 10 years is excellent, then these are the people you ought to be putting on your list to reelect. And
if you like what you're getting, keep doing what you're doing.
Yeah, exactly. And those folks are Bob Skolnick, Republicans Bob Skolnick, Marv Engel, Democrat Lou Collins, Democrat James Derazinski, Republican John Snyder, and Democrat County Chairman Ken Mahoney. So if you think the county is on the right track, those are the folks that you want to reelect, in particular because they've been around the longest time. Now, every other currently sitting Muskegon County commissioner is running again to be reelected, and of course there's 11. That's sort of like musical chairs. 11 of them are running for only 9 seats. And some of the more interesting ones, the races, I think, are Ben Cross, who was a commissioner in the Muskegon Lakeshore area there. He is a first-termer. He's going to be challenged by Republican Mark Molitor. Mark is the vice president of engineering of one of the big companies in town. Mark's an extremely bright guy and has really done some homework. He will definitely be asking questions of Ben Cross as to why should you be reelected.
Ben is the UAW representative on the County Board of Commissioners, isn't he?
Oh, okay. He could be. Another interesting one, current sitting Democrat Scott Plummer will be challenged by Democrat Susie Hughes. So this is another one that will be decided in the primary. Of course, there's the eminent James Riley, who will be challenging the current sitting Bob Skolnick in the Republican primary. So that will also be challenged, or that will also be settled most likely in August. This August 7th primary is really going to be unusual in that it's going to be in many cases far more important than the November election.
When did Susie decide to throw her hand in the race?
Susie is running as a Democrat against Democrat Scott Plummer. She jumped in about, I don't know, maybe 2 months ago,
okay.
6 weeks ago.
And I noticed that her husband, John, is also running for the Muskegon Township trustee.
Yes, he's running for re-election as trustee of Muskegon Township. They're both pretty prominent folks in Muskegon Township. They're involved in the Hughes Construction Company, an excellent construction company, and interestingly, one that did survive this grand recession. So obviously they're doing something right over there. 2 sitting commissioners who are going to be facing off against each other, Republican Marv Engel and Democrat Lou Collins, both very long-sitting county commissioners. Their district has been merged. Neither one has a primary challenge. Hopefully, again, they'll be asking each other, why should I be reelected to this new seat? Another interesting one here, current county commissioner in Muskegon, Anthony Longmire, has 2 challengers, Joshua Eldon Brady, and the old commissioner, Charles Nash, who Anthony Longmire replaced. So you have an ex-commissioner challenging a current commissioner and a new person, this Joshua Eldon Brady. So that should be, I think, a real interesting one. Again, we are depending either on you, the citizens, you, the voter, to pick up the phone and contact these folks or go to whatever events that they have. But more importantly, we really are depending on the Muskegon Chronicle to help us out and the Eye on Muskegon to help you make these decisions. We're going to be doing that, too. We will be sending questionnaires out to every one of these candidates and seeing what type of response we get from them. Let's finish up here. As we mentioned, Alan Jagger, the Republican, will be running against Democrat James Derazinski or Democrat Ron Hayward in a combined district. So you have 2 sitting, very popular, both James Derazinski and Alan Jagger, very popular county commissioners. Actually, I think that perhaps, other than maybe my race against the Bob Skolnick, this gives you the clearest, easy decision. Alan Jagger has voted no on many, or yes, actually, issues alone. And James Derazinski has been on the opposite of those votes. So you can look at those votes and decide who you support based on those votes. So that's kind of an easy one if you do your homework, and we'll try to help you do that homework.
Derazinski, because of the of all of the interesting races on the Republican side of the on other parts of the Republican primary, Derazinski is probably not going to get many Republican crossover votes in this thing, and he is not a very loyal Democrat as far as the Democrats think. I think he's been a good Democrat, but I wouldn't be surprised if Mr. Hayward gives him a good run for the money just to punish Derazinski for all the times that he's across the Democrat Party.
Well, that's an extremely good point because Dzerzhinsky, I believe, was the county vice chair, and the Democrats moved him out.
He was actually the chairman once with the support of Republicans.
That's right. Okay, there we go. Thank you for that memory there. And there was the what's I would call, and certainly correct me if I'm incorrect on this, but the Union Democrats have a little bit of a problem with Dzerzhinsky on occasion, although he has not, to the best of my knowledge, in the last couple of years voted against the group. But you're right. That's going to be an interesting primary. The winner, Ron Hayward, James Dzerzhinsky, will be facing Alan Jagger. Up in North Muskegon area, we've got another couple races, and we're going to come back. We will try to finish this up, and we're going to continue this as we get closer and closer. So stay tuned. We will be back at I Am Muskegon.
You dadgum government, you sorry so-and-sos.
Alrighty, we are back, and we are trying to get through this list of folks who are running for elective office here in Muskegon County. And I wanted to finish up just the final two county commission seats. Very long time serving Republican John Snyder will have a Democrat facing him in November. Democrat Terry Sabo will be running against Democrat Chuck Woods in the Democrat primary. So again, I think these primaries are great, and I think having a challenger is excellent because it gives the citizen, the voter, the opportunity to come out and say, okay, look, why should I vote for you? And I keep saying maybe the biggest, but this might be the biggest. The Muskegon County is really run very heavily by the county chairman. And in this case, from Montague, it's Democrat Ken Mahoney. If you like the direction of Muskegon County, then you definitely want to support and vote for Ken Mahoney. If you think things are really going well, he's the gentleman you want to stand behind. Republican Fred Birch, Captain Fred, who's an often a co-host here, has submitted his papers to challenge Ken Mahoney. He's not as enthusiastic with the direction of the county, and nor is he all that enthusiastic with many of the votes that Ken Mahoney has made. So he will be articulating his reasons to replace a long time, and I would say relatively popular, certainly among some, county chairman, the chairman of the Muskegon County Board of Commissioners. So,
I circulated petitions for Captain Fred, and people didn't know who he was. But when I told them who he was running against, they quickly signed his petition. So I think there are some people out there who don't think that the county is going the way it ought to go in the White Lake area. Well,
we're going to find out. We will find out, of course, in these elections, but I think it's critical to understand and remember that we have this August 7th election is really, really, really important. A couple of other ones that are interesting. Laketon Township Supervisor's got two folks. Long-term Republican Kim Arter is now being challenged by in the primary by retired sheriff, one of the sheriff's deputies, Gary Brudzinski. Actually, we've got a bunch of other ones there. I do want to touch base on. Maybe we'll just have to come back next week and talk about them. We will continue to try to bring up to all of you the votes that are being done right now, the things that are done at the county level, and certainly at the city and the township levels also. Please give us a call or send us an email if you've got some things that you think we ought to be addressing. There's a lot of stuff happening, folks. Your power, the time of greatest power is between now and the primaries, and then between the primaries and the general election. If you want to change things, you really can change it. We saw it with those folks who went to the Republican convention from West Michigan. We saw it with our Republican committeemen. So we will talk to you next week at I Am Muskegon, folks. Thanks to Andy and,
glad to be
and Oscar.
Here. Thank you.
Have a great week.